Hi there, this is Mike Wolf again. Thank you for tuning in. Today we're going to talk a little bit about what I call Real Estate 101. Kind of I guess the plus is why I do real estate in the first place. I mean, there's so many different investment vehicles out there. There's stocks, there's mutual funds, there's bonds, there's GICs, there's gold, there's all these different precious metals. Anyway, I love real estate for a number of reasons. And one is that there's more than one way to make money with it. There's numerous ways. And not only that, you can have other people pay for your investment for you. That's the beauty of it, is that when you own real estate, your renters can be paying your mortgage if you have one. And hopefully if you're buying properly, and I'm going to teach you how to buy properly, every month you have money coming in. You have passive income. So you do something once, you buy the property, and every single month it gives you a reward. It pays you off. And the beautiful thing about right now, we're in the middle of a recession, interest rates are very, very low, and it's keeping our rents actually relatively low compared to where they should be. So what's going to happen is if you're buying a property now and the numbers make sense rent-wise, well, that's only going to get better because that rent's not likely to go down. It's much more likely to go up over time. And rent is very tied to inflation, so as prices start to go up, which is going to happen, we're expecting some mass and hyperinflation actually coming down the pipeline because the U.S. printed trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars worth of money. The presses have been printing money non-stop, and just huge amounts of money they've thrown into the economy. So that brings down the value of the currency. So what that leads to is prices going up, and rent is one of the first things to go up when hyperinflation hits. So for us as landlords, that is very good news. Not only that, interest rates are also going to head up. Also, a lot of people get worried about that. A lot of investors get worried, and that's actually a plus for us as investors, because as the interest rates go up, the rent is going to go up accordingly, so it's going to cover the difference in your costs. If you're smart, you're locking in for a long term right now. In the U.S., they actually do 30-year mortgages where your rate won't change for that entire 30 years. In Canada, usually goes up to about 10, and usually give you the best rates around 5. But in any case, I'd be going for some long-term money if you do have a mortgage. But the other good thing, though, is that as the interest rates go up, your tenants become less mobile. They're not going to qualify for mortgages, so your tenants that might otherwise want to buy a house, they'd much rather own than pay you rent, they're not able to because now the interest rates have gone higher and their salaries haven't gone high enough to compensate for that. So that's actually a good thing. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that I love about real estate that you're not going to find in any other kind of investment. So firstly, it provides passive income like I was mentioning. And so once again, what that means, every single month you're going to take in revenue in the form of rent. And that's on a single family home. If you have an apartment building, you might have other sources of revenue. But we're going to talk mostly single family here, keep it basic. So you're going to have rent coming in every single month. Now keep in mind when you're calculating what your cash flow is that you will have expenses. So don't forget you've got property taxes, you have insurance. In the U.S. you have what's called, quite often, not always, but HOA. That's homeowner association fees. That's a fee that's part of the community. You're going to pay X number of dollars per month to be in a certain community. And sometimes that includes things. Sometimes it'll actually reduce your property taxes because now maybe the community has its own garbage collection, or they take care of the landscaping or whatever, and it doesn't rely on now the city. So now that'll reduce your municipal taxes. So in any case, you have to take into account all these things. Also, always take into account vacancy, because even though you may buy a property with a renter already in place, count on the fact that you're not always going to have a tenant in there. Sometimes your property is going to sit vacant for a month, maybe even 2, and hopefully not longer. That's one of the things that you should be taking into consideration when you're picking where you want to buy. If you're buying in a place where there's high unemployment and high vacancy rates, you probably want to stay away, because even though in theory you buy a house that could rent for a high amount, if it's not rented, it brings you zero, and you still have those expenses. So, and don't forget, you got to pay utilities as well on the months when it's vacant. I usually get my tenants, actually I won't say usually, I always get my tenants to pay the utilities, but when it's vacant, now that's your responsibility. So keep that in mind. Also, I recommend buying newer homes. And that's exactly what I do in all the markets that I'm in. I'm not buying old homes. I'm buying in newer neighborhoods. Reason for that is one of the other things you have to take into account is repairs. You will have to do upkeep over time. The roof is eventually going to need repairs. Hot water tanks, furnaces, air conditioning units, and if you have bad tenants, carpets, paint, all these things are going to need your attention over time, if you don't upkeep the house, you're not going to attract good tenants. And it's very important. Tenants will make or break your real estate career if you're buying to hold, which is what I recommend. So the passive income is basically the revenue in the form of rent minus all your expenses, and also take into account contingency fund for vacancy and for repairs. So at the end of the day, if it gives you, if the property you buy is giving you a nice passive income, you're actually getting paid while you wait for this property to go up. And that's our next point. So you have this appreciation. So a lot of people, when they think about real estate, what they're thinking about, okay, well, I'm going to buy it for this and sell it for this. They're thinking about the appreciation. I want to kind of change the way you think a little bit and focus on the passive income. We can't guarantee when the appreciation is going to happen. We know that it will. Real estate is cyclical. It's tied to inflation. The cost of building a house never goes down. Labor is always going up. The cost of supplies is always going up. The price of fuel goes up. The cost for Home Depot to bring the supplies to their warehouse goes up, so they pass that on to you. So real estate is tied to inflation, but eventually you will get that appreciation, and it's just a matter of time, but we don't know when, and we don't want to count on it. So the last thing you want to do is have something where you have negative cash flow every month, where the rent doesn't cover the expenses, so you're feeding it. And one of the most common things I get, I do a lot of mentoring, and most of my students, I'll always ask them, what are you trying to achieve? Because depending on what you're trying to achieve, I'm going to make the course that I give you based on you reaching your goals. So if your goal is, like most people's, and that's to get out of your job, you need to replace that with a passive income. This appreciation will eventually make you wealthy. There's no doubt about that. But if you can't afford to hold on to that property, or if every month, let's say you have to subsidize it $200 or $300 every month, well, if your goal is to get out of your job, well, now guess what? You've got to work X number of extra hours to support that $300 a month. And if it takes you 5 years before you see the appreciation to the point where you're ready to sell it, well, now over 3 years you've made 36 payments of $300 out of your pocket. So you're behind, and you have to have extra appreciation to compensate for that. So I never buy with appreciation in mind unless I'm buying specifically to flip it, and I know I have a very clear exit strategy. And I know I can get that profit. So I usually teach my students to go for the to buy and hold strategy. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute here. But there are times where you can buy to flip. And the most common time that I'll do that is when I'm buying at tax deed auctions, like I do in Houston. And I think I've spoken about this before in some of the previous videos. You can get some pretty good deals because basically the county will put homes up for auction starting at the amount owing on unpaid property taxes. So you can get some good deals. There's a whole lot of pitfalls. If you know how to do it, though, there's a lot of room to flip those properties and make some money. But in general, I like to talk about the passive income and the long-term approach to real estate. Real estate is not a get-rich-quick scheme. If you're trying to get rich quickly, get out of your job in like 2 months or 6 months, you're not taking the right course, because I'm not going to show you how to do that. It is a building game, but it's something you can count on over time. And one of my favorite strategies to teach my students is to buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and then repeat. Now the beauty of this strategy, and you don't always have to rehab, that's only if the property needs work, but the beauty of it is it's your typical buy and hold, but instead of selling it, instead of your exit strategy being to sell it, let's say you bought a house right now for $80,000 in Phoenix, for example. And in 3 years from now, it goes back to what it's, and don't quote me that it's going to go up in 3 years, but let's say it went back to its previous value. Most of the homes in Phoenix that we're buying are 80% off what they used to be. So let's just call this a $325,000 home. So if it goes up, where you've made $245,000, that's really nice, but as soon as you cash that in, depending on how you do it, you may have a capital gain on your hands. You may have to pay a lot of tax on it. On the other hand, if you refinance this $325,000 house, and you only want to do it to the point where you're still getting positive cash flow, you don't want to pull every last dime out of this property and now you're feeding it. You want to still have it make sense. But let's say you borrowed 80%, let's say you borrowed $300,000 on it, and assuming that the rent would cover the cost of the mortgage payment and would still cover the taxes and your insurance and all that, and it made sense to do so, well, if you borrowed $300,000 against this property and buy yourself another property, and in one of my previous videos we talked about the cyclical nature of real estate. So maybe Phoenix is now back at its peak again, it's up here, and now maybe it's time to pull some money out of it. And what you want to do with that money is buy something down near the bottom here again, and just keep riding these cycles over and over and over again. So maybe you take this $300,000, you buy 2 or 3 homes in a depressed market. You're also going to look at one of my previous videos where we talk about what markets to buy in, and you're going to make sure that there's reason to suspect there's not only going to be good cash flow and passive income, but there's also going to be reason to expect appreciation, meaning good employment numbers, people moving there as opposed to moving away, good demographics. You have to look at that. It's really important. But basically at this point you don't have a taxable event. Borrowing money against your property, not only is it not a taxable event, if you do it right, you can actually write off the payments of this if you're using it to invest in other properties. So once again, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not an accountant. Talk to the professionals about your particular situation. But the good thing about this, like I said, it allows you to get a bigger collection of real estate. You could sell that and take the money and move it, or you could just keep riding it out, because you know what, even if it starts to come down a little bit, big deal. As long as it's giving you that passive income, the goal is to have as many income generating properties as possible so that you can get out of your job. Replace your earned income, you trade your time for money every day, instead have it come passively to you where you don't have to do anything. And that brings up another point. I always get a property manager to look after my properties. And reason for that is I do want my passive income to be passive. I don't want to be the guy collecting rent. If you're the guy collecting rent every month, I guarantee you, you're not going to feel like this is passive income. You're going to hate this and you're going to miss your old job. So have professionals look after it. You have to have the right people on your team for that. We have great property managers in every city that we work in. We've gone through countless other property managers to get the good ones, and it's always a challenge to do that, but that's a very important part of the process, is having a solid power team everywhere that you work. But once you have that down, it's really easy. It doesn't matter where I am in the world, where I'm traveling to, that money is showing up in my bank account every single month. And so that's what I teach my students how to do. The other really important thing about doing real estate is that you can make yourself a business owner. You can have a real estate business. So guess what? Let's say you decided you wanted to go to Hawaii. Well, if you're going to your job and you're taking your wage and spending it on a ticket to get to Hawaii, you're using after-tax dollars. You've already paid tax on that money. So if you're paying $5,000, it's cost you a lot more than $5,000, because to have that $5,000 sitting in your bank, you had to make $8,000 or $9,000 or $10,000, pay the tax on it, and then what's left over you get to spend. You get to play with it. Well, if you're a business owner, let's say you decide you want to go to the tax deed auction in Hawaii, and I can teach you how to do that. Well, suddenly, if you're going down to Hawaii and you look at some properties in preparation for this auction, well, guess what? Now your business can pay for that trip and write it off. And once again, talk to your accountant. Don't take my word for anything. But at the end of the day, you have to keep a lot more of what you make, because your business is going to pay for a lot of your expenses. And I'll give you some more examples. When I drive to a meeting, I get to write off the gas, I get to write off the parking. If you're going to your 9-to-5 job, and I don't know what parking is like where you live, where I live in Calgary, it's ridiculously expensive, but if you're going to work, your 9-to-5 job, you're paying for that parking, you don't get to write that off. You don't get to write off the gas that you used to get there. If I go to meet you at your office, I am writing it off. So it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And being a business owner, and that's an important part of what I teach, is how to set yourself up, how to set up your companies properly so you can benefit from all these deductions, where you can write off your travel, write off your computers, iPads, anything that you might need for your business, you can write that off, and you're not using after-tax dollars. So there's a whole lot of reasons why I like real estate a lot better than stocks, for example. And it really comes down, the biggest thing is the passive income. Same with if you're buying, I know that everybody's talking about gold and precious metals being a great hedge against inflation, and they are. Definitely if you're worried about the currency and where that's going, it's a good hedge against inflation. However, it doesn't give you any income. If you have that gold sitting under your mattress, it doesn't give you a dime every single month. It doesn't put any food on your table. So you're only benefiting from this side of it. And that's appreciation. You only make money if it goes up. It does nothing for you in the meantime. Real estate, every month you get a paycheck. You're getting paid while you wait for this big appreciation to come in. And once you get that appreciation, like I said, you can always refinance, get yourself some more properties, and that's how you're eventually going to get out of your job. So we're going to talk a little bit more in some more detail in some future videos, but these are my reasons for loving real estate, and I hope you love it too. We'll see you in the next video.